Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's session of PyCon AU 2018. Our first speaker in this block is Kelsey van Haaster from ThoughtWorks. Please make her feel welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep, excellent, excellent. All right, a couple of confessions before we start. This talk doesn't have any Python in it at all. So if you're expecting some, you may need to be in a different place. Second confession is that I speak quite a lot, and no matter how many times I do it, like I used to lecture 18-year-olds in first year computer science, even after all these years, I'm still terrified. So if you think you can see me shaking, you can. I'd like to start off by showing you a little video which illustrates some of the things that I'm going to talk about and also gives me about 4 minutes to get my heart rate down. So let's see if we can make this work. Technology fail. Right, okay. So, as per my introduction, my name's Kelsey van Haaster. I'm from ThoughtWorks, which some people might have heard of. My role is product owner for the ThoughtWorks Global Identity team, so internal ThoughtWorks. And I have this job basically because nobody else applied for it. I've had it for about 4 years now. That's my email address, and my Twitter handle is there, and I tweet a lot and retweet a lot too. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk briefly about identity and our context, because that's helpful to understand why I'm standing here talking about this. I'm going to talk about our challenges that we faced, then some research that we did as a team, and what we do now, which was the outcome of that research. And hopefully some of that might be useful to some of you who are also working in or considering working in a remote team at some point. First, a definition. What do I mean when I'm talking about a remote team? So a remote team is one where the members work from locations other than a corporate office. Team members are rarely, if ever, co-located. An example of a purely remote team is a group of people working on an open source project. A distributed team, which might be more familiar, is made up of often groups of co-located and sometimes single people in more than one location. They can be distributed even throughout a building or more broadly. And a team where groups of co-located people work with other groups of co-located people, that's probably a model again that people are pretty familiar with, is an example of a distributed team. And both kinds of these teams can be globally distributed. So what do I know about remote teams? A bit, as it turns out. First of all, the context. I work for ThoughtWorks. We're a software company, a software consultancy, made up of about 5,500 fairly passionate individuals. We're a business that works with various clients, but we're also very active in improving the world through technology, various social things. We're very active in the area of internet privacy, security, and so on and so forth. And we're a pretty diverse organisation. That is something that we actively try to do. We are located in 41 offices in 14 countries, and we are 25 years old this year. We were privately owned by a guy called Roy Singham, who started the organisation as a social experiment, which means that we've got almost no organisational hierarchy, or not one that you could draw. anyway, which makes life a bit interesting sometimes. And we hire really smart people who are amazing and wonderful and can be a little shouty at times. And we encourage shoutiness, polite shoutiness. We're, as I said, global. This is how we look on the world map. This is TechOps, the organisation that I work for, so we deliver internal IT services. And we are also globally distributed, so we are a team of globally distributed teams. And this is identity. This is my team and the team I'm going to talk about today. We look after identity and access management for ThoughtWorks. We do that through Okta, through Google in terms of apps, and we write a whole lot of bespoke code. Much of that is in Python, I might add. I'm down the bottom there in Australia, and I have a pair in far north Queensland. I've got a pair of people in Bangalore and Pune in England, a lonely person in Spain, in the EU at the moment, sorry, hoping to get a pair for that person soon. And I've got 2 people in the US, so San Francisco and San Diego. That seems like a pretty odd grouping, but what it actually lets us do is provide 24/7 support across the globe without anybody having to work night shifts. It's a pretty deliberate strategy on our part. And we do end-to-end product delivery. So everybody spends their time on help desk. Everybody, with the exception of me, probably writes code. Everybody does analysis. Everybody does customer research. We are a completely cross-functional team. And what we build, we run, and we support. That's what our time grid looks like, incidentally. So as you can see from there, there is no green line across the whole team at all. So no business hours where we can actually all be together at once. In fact, we are so globally distributed, we can't even be together on the same day of the week. So this makes for some interesting approaches, shall we say. And just for fun, this is us in India about 3 weeks ago, where we met face-to-face for the first time ever for a week. That was pretty cool. Okay. What's awesome? And there are a lot of things that are really, really awesome about this team. We are empowered to affect real organisational change at a global level, changing and improving legacy infrastructure, moving everything that we can to the cloud. We've just about untangled Active Directory from our infrastructure completely. We're now starting to extend the thought worker life cycle, so identity and access management, beyond employees to pre-hires, and we hope to start doing that with customers and alumni and partners and various other people this year. So that's pretty cool. We've been able to make some really measurable and significant improvements to the thought worker experience around identity and access management. Just a few years ago, 30% of help desk tickets were about people not being able to reset their own passwords or getting locked out of our systems. Now it's rare. It's really rare. We're all very experienced people, so necessarily we're a team of senior people, and that's possibly a disadvantage of this model. It's very hard for a junior person to be part of this. We're all multi-skilled, as I mentioned. We have a really strong feedback culture, and we work in an environment where we are trusted, we trust each other, and we can trust our colleagues. And we all absolutely love what we do. So the team has been very, very stable, not much coming and going at all over the years. Some things are not so awesome. and this is coming back from about 18 months ago, we realised that we were all working too many hours. Often the day will start with calls at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then there'll be calls at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And if you're not very good at managing your time, it's very easy to clock up a week of 12-hour days. It's really easy to do that. Video conferencing. Too much video conferencing, unsuccessful. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the experience from video. It's improved a bit over the years, but it still sucks. We resorted to some very, very long and complicated email threads, like Lily's laughing, probably remembers some of these, that went on for days, and you'd see this thing that had come in overnight from a technical discussion about 3 or 4 colleagues. I'd get to about paragraph 1 and, be looking for some bleach to drink because it was kind of, oh my God. Lots of effort and wheel spinning, trying to keep people on the same page, trying to keep people connected, just burning hours of energy doing that. And then the problem of staying in sync with all of those other remote teams that I told you about before. Identity is pretty central. Everybody needs to talk to us at some point. And we had a reasonable amount of frustration about the time that decisions and discussions could take. Really, for the whole team to have a conversation, the globe has to rotate a couple of times. So urgent takes on a whole new meaning for us. We realised that what we were doing was trying to work like a co-located team. We were applying all of the things that we'd learned from being in co-located teams, and we were trying to overcome the fact that we weren't and make that so. So we spent some time talking about this, and we realised that we had, I guess, 4 key challenges. And I'll talk a little bit about what those were. The first one is the balancing act. And that's something I referred to a little bit earlier. It's around balancing the late nights, the early mornings, the staying on top of things. It gives you a great deal of flexibility, but at the same time, dead easy to get burned out. Second challenge was rethinking how we communicated. Incidentally, this picture is I was at a conference in Vegas earlier on this year, Octane Conference, and the keynote speaker was Barack Obama. And this picture is one that I took when he walked onto the stage, where about 6,000 people simultaneously got up and went like this with their phones. It was like we practiced it. It was pretty amazing experience. So there was some communication going on there. When we first started the team, we didn't have the spread of time zones that we have now. So we could be online together, and we did try to spend a lot of time using video conferencing technology, things like an always-on video link. And as I've said a couple of times, it sucks. It just does not work, not good enough. Later on, we started to get people in different time zones, and it was just much harder, double the trouble, basically. It made everything else that was also more difficult. And it made working collaboratively with other, also remote teams, actually harder. Culture eats methodology for breakfast. That's my breakfast every day. ThoughtWorks, our culture, is our secret sauce. Anybody who's ever worked at ThoughtWorks would know that. It's critical, it glues us together. And we try to make a consistent global culture. And a lot of that is dependent on co-location. It's dependent on us coming together, either in offices or countries or various things, sharing successes, supporting each other through less successes, and building trust. We weren't able to easily do that. And finally, finding the right tools. If you're begging for your dinner and you happen to live in Cologne, this is the right tool for you to use, incidentally, if you ever need to do that. This guy was quite successfully collecting quite a few euros here. But on tools, we spent a lot of time trying to dog food internal tools and use tools that were available to other teams. It didn't take us very long to realise that finding something that actually worked for us mattered more than whatever the corporate offering was. Email is terrible, as I've said, and VC sucks. So, what were we going to do about it? Well, we figured, well, we can't be the only remote team on the planet. Let's have a look at some research. Let's have a look at the landscape. Let's see what else is out there. And a couple of facts. In the US alone, the number of remote workers has grown more than 103% in the last decade. More than 50% of people will work remotely by 2020. So we're not alone. These are a list of 125 companies with entirely remote workforces. I've highlighted some of the ones that are tech companies that you're likely to recognise. Lots of blogs, articles and opinions, and I can give you 5 pages of references for those later if you want them. And we did a bit of user research. We did a short anonymous survey distributed by social media, and we got a few responses. They're pretty widely distributed. They were self-selected responses. This survey probably would not stand up to much academic scrutiny, but it was interesting to get some information. And there's a quick kind of overview. We found, compared to us, most people had slightly smaller team sizes than us. Most remote teams had fewer customer time zones than us, and nearly all teams had fewer team time zones than us. We have 17 time zones to cover. And we got some great comments as well, relating to our challenges, things about how working from home gives you a great deal of flexibility in creating an environment that works for you. Extra hours a day from commuting that people can spend doing things that are of interest to them, maybe related to company work, maybe not. They were some of the benefits that people talked about. And on comms, even if good comms are in place, there's still work to do. If you have poor comms, it's awful. It's really bad. And again, something similar. When it's a remote team, if you don't have good communications that work for you, then it's much, much worse than it otherwise could be. Social activities. Some people missed that. Waiting for the time lag for decisions to be made. That's a challenge. I need to go faster. But getting to know each other and establishing trust is really important. So these are just comments from the community. And on tools, tools are an important factor for us. So finding the right ones is really important. So having learned all this stuff, we set about addressing our particular challenges. Challenge number 1, autonomy is a big benefit. And remote working results in, or can result in, better work-life balance for employees. So we had a look at what we were doing. And what we do now is we actively call each other out. If somebody is working at silly o'clock, and there are a couple of people on my team who appear to never sleep, we call it out. We encourage each other to be personally accountable for not burning out. You have the freedom not to do that, and you're a grown-up. You need to manage it. This is an important one. Put sleep time and weekends in your calendar and share it. And then that means you can also say, respect other people's calendar, look at their calendar, and if it's currently sleep time, don't ping them. Challenge 2. This was interesting. The expert advice on this was that synchronized communication is really actually highly overrated for all the reasons that I've talked about before. It doesn't actually matter if you can't all be online at once. You have to do other things. You have to do things differently. So what we do now is we do 2 stand-ups a day, and we use an anchor person, it's usually me, who attends both and then makes sure that the team is, one half of the team is connected to the other half of the team. We do lots of other things like not getting precious about the work. We're, I guess, use a DevOps approach. Anybody can pick up a piece of work and keep it moving. We hire the right people. So we hire people who choose to be working in a remote first team, who have some experience about it or who are willing to try, and we are very upfront about what it means. And we spend time and effort cultivating our culture. We spend time talking offline and sharing family photographs and holidays and so on and so forth to try and deliberately make up for what is missing. And you can't over-communicate. I say everything 50 times. Always somebody misses it. And again, on the same topic, making the effort to get to know one another, recognizing that trade-offs are required. And the right tools. Picking the right tools is important. It's good to experiment, automate everything. And then finally, again, be prepared to change things and recognize that you can overload the tools that you have. The last point here is important. Spending effort automating things is like earning compounding interest. And finally, general principles. Don't fight remoteness, embrace it for what it is. Hire thoughtfully for your team, level the playing field, find the right ways of working. We use kind of a Kanban-like approach. We are big fans of no estimates. And we experiment and iterate until awesome. There are always things that you can do to make it better. And the takeaway message is there are lots of benefits from being able to work remotely for individuals, for teams, and for organizations. But you have to embrace the world that you're in. Trying to ignore it or fight it doesn't work. And that's all I have. And I don't think there's even any time for questions. But
unfortunately, I don't think we do have time for questions. If you do want to speak to Kelsey, I'm sure she'll be around and can answer your questions out in the hallway. Or you can contact her via social media, email, various things. Please thank Kelsey.